are trained in feeding therapy. So
yes, because you're right. This is not just, nutrition is almost the biochemical stuff that's happening in your body. Feeding is how you get that nutrition in your body. Feeding requires some sort of physical movement, whether somebody is physically feeding you or you're feeding yourself. So, oh my goodness, there's a lot of moving pieces to nutrition.
Yes.
That I'm guessing that a lot of listeners have not really thought about. You just eat, whatever.
Right. So much more than eating.
Oh, so much more. So will you tell us a little bit more about your background then on nutrition? Because you just told us what you aren't, which I appreciate, but I would like the listeners to hear more about what you are.
Goodness. I'm
You're a lot.
Well, I mean, I think I've never really answered a question like this before, other than the fact that I'm a pediatric nutritionist. I'm trained in the science of pediatric nutrition, but I guess, I'd like to think that I empower parents, I encourage and coach them and help them and help them see light to a problem that they might be dealing with in a way that's going to be joyful for them and joyful for their child. But I'm also, I'm an educator. I educate parents, but I educate professionals too. A lot of the work I do is sort of spreading my philosophy without sounding too, big for my britches here, but spreading my philosophy about child nutrition and feeding kids, because there are still a lot of people out there who just think it is about getting a healthy plate and getting all the nutrients in. And that's just so much more than that. And I feel like my purpose is to educate pediatricians and other nutritionists and other healthcare providers, caretakers who work with children to see that, you can get a perfect plate on the table, but you can have all kinds of struggles with your child around getting that food into them. So it's not just about making sure fruits and vegetables are being consumed. It's a lot bigger than that. And so, I feel like my purpose is to really empower parents and professionals to be really savvy with nourishing the whole child, inside and out.
Yes, I really like that, because many meals are not consumed at home. So even though I, as the perfect parent, may create this perfect environment, my child has to go to school, or perhaps my child is in daycare, or, whatever else. And then how do I feel comfortable that my child is being nourished, by other people? So, wow. Do you ever work with schools on nutrition?
I used to. I don't currently, but yes, I used to do that. I mean, I do a lot of speaking. Like this year, I'm going to the School Nutrition Association, which is a large annual meeting to talk about childhood nutrition. So in my speaking that I do, I oftentimes hit these larger groups that are affiliated with schools. I'm doing one for childcare providers. Also, so they're the parents, they're the caretakers that are running daycare centers and preschools, and they need to know also not just what goes on the plate, but how do we create a positive feeding environment so that kids want to come to the table and eat and enjoy it.
Yes. Do you have any resources for parents who might be listening and thinking, this is great and I get it. I would love to hand something to my child's daycare provider, or I would love to help educate the school that my children's school environment is not healthy. How do I help spread Jill's message?
Yeah, thank you. Well, on my website, jillcastle.com, I have several free resources. So there's a resources tab, and if you drop down, there's freebies. I have, I can't remember all of them, but there's probably at least a dozen there. Some as basic as, portion sizes for kids. Again, not with restriction in mind, but as a place to start. Or I have, family style feeding. I have over 500 articles on my blog about childhood nutrition and feeding, and several of them have downloadable cheat sheets and educational handouts that parents can go and snag anywhere from baby nutrients and baby feeding methods, all the way up to, healthy snacks for athletes and teenagers, and breakfast ideas for toddlers, and snacks for after school. And I have just all kinds of stuff there. That's what happens when you've been doing it for over 10 years. It's just like the creative monster in me just that parent needs this. Let's create it for everybody.
Yes, I love that though. That's perfect. Good. So people, JillCastle.com. Will you spell that for us?
JILLCASTLE.com. Castle
Perfect.
as in Queen and King.
You
Jill
got
as in Jack and Jill.
Hey, that's perfect. Good. So people can go there. They can educate themselves. They can share the love with grandparents, perhaps, schools, daycare providers, anywhere, anyone, anywhere who has got access to their kids, and maybe create that healthy feeding environment, as well as some healthier meals, and shift some cultural beliefs. That, to me, your work sounds very much like it's a shifting of a culture through the shifting of the individual.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Good. So to wrap up, where are you going from here?
I'm going to Florida next week.
Hey!
Actually, my son is a rower, and he goes to training camp on February break. So I get to go with him. I'll work from there, but I will also get my vitamin D by running around outside and playing a little golf. So, yeah.
I like that. And you mentioned you have 4 kids.
I do.
How do they feel about nutrition, and are there any personal little struggles that you overcame with them, or tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I have 4 kids. I have a 22-year-old, not really a kid anymore, 20-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 17-year-old. So my baby is a junior in high school. And I definitely, I've got this great education in pediatric nutrition, great practical clinical experience, but I learned a lot from raising my own children. So I had my first baby after I was 7 years as a practitioner in a hospital. So I'd had 7 years under my belt. I was rocking the whole pediatric nutrition thing. And then I had my own child, and I was like, this is the most difficult human being I've ever met.
Wait.
She was, oh gosh, she's a love. She is amazing young woman, but I cut my teeth on pediatric nutrition trying to feed her. And I really struggled with feeding her. There was a lot of, I was still working when she was young. And so I was commuting back and forth to Boston. So I was coming home stressed out. And she really is a sensitive child. And so she could feel my stress. And so feeding was always very difficult. And by a year, she was underweight. And by 18 months, she was anemic. So I was like, I got to get my act together. It really rocked my world and changed my perspective on nutrition for kids, because I realized, hey, it's not all about just food and nutrients. She's reacting to me. We're in a struggle, and it's affecting her health. So I really had to step back and say, there's a better way to do this. And then I went and had 3 more kids. And so they were my guinea pigs. I tested out all my theories on them. And they actually are all wonderful eaters. They appreciate exercise. They appreciate sleep. They love coming to the table. They request, different recipes we've made over the years. Our family table is a table of community and good, positive support. I don't know. I feel like I did a good job with them. And I think if you asked each of them, they would say they feel like they have a really good handle on nutrition. I was never overpowering or too controlling about it. In fact, if anything, I was like, I'm a dietitian. I have to be extremely careful of anything I say, and really let them lead, because I didn't want to ever come off as pushy or pushing the nutrition message or anything like that. So I can appreciate how parents really want to drum in the nutrition message and everything, because it was natural to me to want to do it. But I really tried to dial back on that.
Yeah, I like that, especially, in this culture of the obesity epidemic and the diabetes and blah, 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 blah. I think you're right. I think most parents are like, we've got to do it right. We're going to do it right. But that can backfire.
Yes, it's I wish I could tell parents, it's like, just do this and it'll all be great. But you really have to look at the child you're feeding, and you really have to have a really good appreciation of who that child is and where they are in their development, and what your goals are and how you're executing. I said the other day, and I'm like, I've got to write this quote down, but I said, if you want to raise a healthy eater, you have to be very intentional about it. They just don't get created over the span of 18 years without thinking about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. I like that intent piece. Something that kind of popped up in my head though around that, when I set, and again, my kids are 19 and almost 21. So I'm not feeding them. The dining hall at college is feeding them. But yes, that intent piece is huge, but there are also some skills, and I despise cooking. And I feel like what I'm hearing you say is there's ways that people can still nourish their kids without being a gourmet chef. And, you said your kids still request some recipes, and I love that. But sometimes recipes were hard for me because I don't enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh, and I appreciate that too. And I feel like, here's another thing with parents. It doesn't have to be a gourmet recipe. And actually, the plainer it is and the more identifiable it is, the better off it goes with children, because they don't like things too complicated. Yet a lot of parents think they have to cook from scratch and it has to be gourmet and this great recipe. Like, no, throw some chicken on the grill, or, throw some beef in the crock pot, put out some raw vegetables, some raw fruit, a gallon of milk, and bread and butter, and you've got a balanced meal. It does not have to be overly complicated and involved.
Yeah, I like that. And then just kind of that piece with love. Don't just go and slap it on the plate. Yeah. Put it out, make it look pretty, take what you want. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jill, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us, not only on the nutrition piece, but on the feeding piece. I found that very enlightening. And it's my guess that many listeners out there too will be going home tonight thinking, oh, let's think about the environment, not just the food. And I love that.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad. Thank you for giving me the platform to be able to talk about that.
You are most welcome. So reach out to Jill. Check out her website. Download some resources. If you're struggling with something, you can reach out to her. If you're just kind of curious, you can, find out her book, check out her blog, listen to her podcast, educate yourself a little bit more, because more is always more. And then you can pick and choose and take those little nuggets of wisdom and move them on into your life and in your child's life as well. So listeners, thank you so much for being with us today. Have a fantastic week. And as usual, don't forget to flaunt.
Tune in next time to Flaunt. Build your dreams, live your sparkle with radio host Laura Cheadle every Wednesday at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Time on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network. Come release self-judgment, reveal your naked self-worth, and re-choreograph a life filled with joy. Flaunt. Find your fetish, laugh out loud, accept unconditionally, navigate the negative, and trust in your truth. Find out more at lauracheadle.com. That's LoraCheadle.com.